Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Evan McCauley, president of the club, and we are thrilled to have you joining us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. Come out and join us for a meeting. We'd love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact that we are having on the local community and world, please visit rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and be the inspiration.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning, Ron.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Catherine Sines. She's back in the rotation.
Yes, I am. Phil and I are going to take turns. Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning.
I'm reading a book about Ireland, so I got an Irish blessing for this morning. May there always be work for your hands to do. May your purse always hold a coin or two. May the sun always shine upon the window pane. May a rainbow be certain to follow each rain. May the hand of a friend always be near to you, and may God fill your heart with gladness to cheer you. Have a good week.
Thank you, Catherine. To lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Phil Herman.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for the four-way test, for the things we think, say, or do, first, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And to lead us in song, we tried to get Pavarotti, but the substitute is Tom Tobin.
Same size. So, in honor of our Cleveland Indians, which have taken 2 in a row from the dreaded Boston Red Sox and are on their way to an American League championship. Let's do Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Sorry about doing this again. So please, take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the Indians. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And our president, Evan McCauley.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians. How is everyone this morning? Good. Good to see all your smiling faces. Ed, wake up over there. Well, to kick us off on that note, Ed, would you like to come up and share an update on Taste of Hudson?
Taste of Hudson is coming up on Labor Day weekend, which is the 2nd and 3rd. We have a sign-up list for those people that would like to join in either the setup, help during the event itself, or tear down. I've got the times down here. If you would sign up and put your phone number or your email address, that would be greatly appreciated. We go back to Evan helping a couple years ago when he was a new member of the Rotary. He came dressed like this. After about 2 hours, he had to go over to Joseph A. Banks and buy a new shirt. I was able to get a little commission on that particular purchase. Also, Friday, first home football game, 7 o'clock. Get there early because there'll be a big crowd. We'll have the band, cheerleaders, a huge student section, and a whole lot of people from the community. And lastly, a great event for Jerry Reeves, a former superintendent of Hudson. Hudson Schools, and also a Rotarian put on by the schools in the dedication of the Media Center. An outstanding job, Phil and Cheryl Sheetsley and the committee that put that together. So that was a great tribute to Jerry. And if you haven't been to the new Media Center, completely remodeled, try to stop by sometime when you're at the high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. I'll never forget it. That was one of my most memorable days in Hudson because we go over to the middle school, and we go in the garage there, and we get the gators. There's like, what, 5 gators, and we were driving right through downtown Hudson. I mean, these things are like golf carts, and we're on the green basically. So that was worth all of the sweat. I promise you that. Next update, we've got Doug McDowell sitting back there with Donna Kastner and Clint Samuel. That dynamic threesome has a really awesome opportunity coming up, and Doug's going to share more about that.
I was told 2 minutes, and I'll do it.
Yeah.
What? Retirement Reinvented is a educational interactive workshop that Donna's organization and initiative, Re-Entrepreneur, is putting on this Friday, the 24th, at Wentz Financial Group, 5790 Hudson Drive. You know where it is. This is an educational event. Anybody, and it's targeted at the people middle 50s and over who are looking for their next career, a new, as Donna calls it, their next gig. I'm not quite up to using the word gig yet, but it's getting there. Why? It's an opportunity to engage with others that have ideas, and it's a way you network, which is the way these things build. The reason I'm interested in it is, believe it or not, I'm one of the presenters. Clint Samuels is one of the presenters. We're giving people pointers on, Clint's going to, the kind of finances you need when you do a part-time gig or a part-time job. I'm going to present the healthcare insurance issues that come along when you make that transition, that bridge between, say, you're 62 or 64 and want to retire until you get to 65, and then what the issues you get into at that point. And then Bob Rochelle, law attorney right downtown that many of you might know, whose office is right over at Tomato Grill. It's really tough to have a meeting with Bob when it starts to waif up, but he and he's going to talk about the legal aspects of, a little business and being in business. And Donna's going to give a little bit of insight into making your brand and starting to generate leads, and how do you get to where you want to be. This is in particular an interesting topic for me because some of you might know I'm sort of in the early stages of my next career, which is assisting people in navigating the whole senior health insurance issue. And it took me 4 years to get where I am, and one of the major contributors to helping me get there was some of my colleagues at Hudson Job Search, in particular Jim Lang, who I networked with and gave ideas, and they gave me ideas, most of which didn't work out. But the one that Jim gave me is the one that worked out. So through Jim told me about this lady that handled healthcare for his little company and said, you ought to go up and talk to her. One meeting led to another, and I met with John Woods in Warren, Ohio, who's one of the principals of Insurance Navigators Agency, who is the kind of guy I want to work with, and I want to help, So Donna, I'm leaving, actually. I'm going to Independence today for a full-day product seminar by 5 major insurance companies. And I haven't done that. I haven't done this in, it's been a few years. And I will be the oldest person in the room.
Like riding a bike?
No, I'm not riding a bike. No. But talk to Donna.
Naps.
Who? Yeah, coffee.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Doug. Good luck on that seminar today. Definitely stay awake for all of that. And hope that you guys have a great event on Friday. I'm going to pass around a couple of cards here. Liz Ramsey is out for a couple of months. She's healing up. She hurt her right foot, unable to drive, and she has asked us to send around some cards. Also, Gail let me know that Bob Hills, who is an honorary Rotarian of our club, longtime member, lives right here in Hudson with his wife Marty. It's his 90th birthday coming up. So we've got a card for Bob. So we'll get these passing around here.
Just to interrupt, Bob and Marty were both at the dedication too. So going strong for 90.
Hey James, AV guy, can you pull up my PowerPoint and navigate to the cartoon slide? While we're doing that, we have another club event coming up that a lot of you are participating in. The sign-up sheet was sent around in the Rotary Reminder this week, and we'll have Pat Shearer come up and get us all riled up for this upcoming weekend. We're going to have a great time, sell a lot of hot dogs, a lot of bottled water, and have fun out there. Yeah, that's perfect.
So after you're at the Hudson High School football game Friday night, set first thing Saturday morning, we start Art on the Green. And we have the sign-up form, so if anybody needs to make any last-minute changes, here's your opportunity. So provided major serious injury or fatalities, we're counting on your commitment, so we'll pass that along. Better? All right. Just feedback.
Try to turn this down a little bit. See if that works.
So those of you that have signed up for Saturday, we're actually partnering with our scout troop. They're going to be having a display area over at the Scout House. So the scouts thought that there would be parents that would come hopefully with the kids that would be wanting to come over and see some of the displays. So we're going to be sending 1 or 2 Rotarians at a time over to the Scout House area on Saturday, so that you can talk with the parents about possibly joining Rotary and some of the things that our Rotary Club does. So if you're signed up on Saturday, sometime during your rotation, you'll have an opportunity to go over to the Scout House and maybe talk with some parents and some other people from the community about joining the Rotary Club. Bob, am I forgetting anything else?
Yeah, where?
Where?
Where are we supposed to show up?
We are obviously we're on the green, so our area is right behind the Rose Grill area. So we're right in there, right tucked up in behind a tree, right in behind the Rose Grill area. So
Yeah, it's where the all the food tents are.
all the food tents and the popcorn and all the kind of stuff's there.
Just a copy of the schedule.
The copy of the schedule was sent out by Evan,
Yep.
and it is, so they do have it in their emails.
Yeah. If you saw your email from Evan earlier this week.
I know when, I just didn't.
Oh, okay, where we are? Okay. So, and that's going around again today too, so if you want to have a reminder too, you can take that information from there. Look forward to seeing you all on Saturday, and go Hudson Friday night. My son, I'm a proud dad, he's starting defensive end on the defensive team, number 55, so if you go to the game, cheer for 55.
Evan, we may switch to this microphone to see if this works better than that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Boxing would come through pretty clearly.
All right, so we got a fun little.
Don't get too close to the
So we've got a fun little comic here this morning, and I added in at the bottom, what do you think is wrong with this image?
There's too many men.
Too many men. That's a good comment. Anybody see anything else here?
They're all white.
Too many people leaving the bus. Absolutely. So those are actually the top two takeaways from this comic here. I think that that you can really kind of dig deeper too. That guy is driving the bus doesn't look so happy, so that's kind of maybe a problem.
Is that you?
Hopefully not. I guess we'll see. But yeah, absolutely. Women and diversity is really lacking in this image. Rotary in Hudson, it's History Month, but for Rotary International, it's Membership and New Club Development Month. So I wanted to kind of touch on this here and segue that into New Club Development Month. It's exciting to announce that we have chartered a new Interact Club here in Hudson at Western Reserve Academy. So Jim Ahern and Allison Feaster are going to be working with the Academy and helping them get that started. Their goal in the first year is to attract about 15 leaders from the Academy. And as it stands right now, they would engage with some of our service projects and fundraising opportunities and kind of take it from there. Whatever they want to do, they're going to run with it. So we're doing pretty well. We're working on some membership items. We have a new membership application, some new membership categories, and that also is going to segue into one piece of business that we'd like to take care of today, and that is a new revised club bylaws. Our board of directors has approved and recommended an updated bylaws, and basically the goal with that revision was to update all of the information. There was outdated information in that, and also refresh the draft, refresh it and make it easy to navigate through and easy to understand, and something that can be passed on to future board of directors. That's going to be first on the agenda at the next board meeting, Mimi. Thank you. So I'm going to call up our... I'm just going to call up our Sergeant at Arms now, Ron Strobel, to keep us in order during this vote. I believe that we have a quorum present, so I'd like to make a motion. Second. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the revised copy of the bylaws. They're available in your email. They're also available online in the membership documents section. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the new club bylaws. All those in favor?
So moved. Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Show of hands. Do we have a show of hands from
You were seconded.
everyone in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed?
Testing.
So we're going to try and clear up these technical issues here. Mimi, we absolutely will, take an extra look at this and try to figure it out for next week. Does anybody else have any updates or announcements before we proceed today? Wonderful. Well, without further ado, I'd like to call up Jim Ahern to kick us off this morning. Wherever.
Be careful, Chuck. I'll try it. I don't think it's on. Speak up. It is on. Oh, great. When I was growing up, my mother only was highly involved in one organization, and that was the Daughters of the American Revolution. And I always wondered, doesn't Sons of the American Revolution care? And we'll probably hear a little bit of that from our speaker in a little bit. But Jay Horner is from the oldest chapter of Sons of the American Revolution, called Western Reserve Society Sons of the American Revolution. Jay holds a BA in Spanish, French, and psychology, and a Master's of Education and a Master's of Spanish. After completing his doctoral exams, he became the primary caregiver for then his ailing father. After his father passed, he became the director of international programs in the development office for a Salvadoran orphanage. School and clinic founded only months after the assassination of Oscar Romero, Archbishop Oscar Romero, and 4 months before the murder of 4 U.S. churchwomen. I remember that. Jay has spent the past 30 years researching and working with social justice issues in Latin America and in Haiti. He's been an officer of the Sons of the American Revolution for 8 years in both the local and state levels. He has 4 Patriot ancestors on his mother's side, and of the family, and 1 on his father's side. So, in being consistent with History Month, I welcome up Jay Horner, and welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. And if I shout too loud, tell me. I was a teacher for 15 years, so the voice goes right to broadcast mode. It's a pleasure to be here because my father was a 55-plus year member of Rotary. We had the plaque over his desk until he died. And I grew up with Rotary as part of my life, though I'm not a Rotarian, because every time Dad planned his summer vacation with the family, he planned it around a Rotary luncheon or breakfast. I can't tell you, one time we were in Hamilton, Bermuda, and I was on the beach, and I turned around, like, where's Dad? Oh, he went into Hamilton, there's a Rotary breakfast. So I know the Rotarians well. That is part of my family. It's an honor to be here. Although the introduction talked about my paying job in running the orphanage, the non-paying job is my passion, which is the Western Reserve Society Sons of the American Revolution. Everybody has heard of the DAR. The women are just so much better at public relations than we are. I mean, everybody does, but we exist, and you're going to learn something tonight that will surprise you, that Ohio made an attempt to have an organization that was co-ed. And it was the national office that kicked that out, and it actually formed the DAR because the National Society wanted to be only men. But you'll see in a second that I'm actually very proud that Ohio, when we were founded, was a co-ed organization, very progressive 100-plus years ago. Really fast, I've got 3 basic messages. One is a real short introduction for people that don't know us. Then my little topic, which is how in the world in today's hyper-partisan America do you run an organization and not have the left-right rip you apart, especially one of ours, which is based in history and politics. And then the last thing I have, if there's time, and I'll try and speak quickly to get there, is I actually put together a little booklet of family histories. Not all of our members actually know what their ancestors did, but a few of them did. So I'll read to you a few histories, very short, a few seconds each, of what these Patriot ancestors did, what their battle was, what they contributed to America. Really quickly, the SAR, the national office, is only a little over 125 years old. In 1876, if you can picture, a lot of the energy in America was in California, and the movers and shakers in California were really motivated by the 100th anniversary, 1776. And they said, let's form the Sons of Revolutionary Sires. It would have been the first official organization for people who were descendants of those that fought in the Revolutionary War. So the very first organization is Sons of Revolutionary Sires. In April 1889, this is now 100 years celebrating the Constitution and Bill of Rights, they formed a different organization, the National Society Sons of the American Revolution. And it was actually designed to be inaugurated in honor of the 100th anniversary of Washington's inauguration. So we were founded in 1889, but this is unique. We were actually chartered by an act of Congress signed by President Roosevelt in 1906. So unlike other organizations, we were actually created and chartered by Congress. So that's the National Society. The Ohio Society was chartered almost the exact same time, 1889. So the National was formed, and then immediately, does this sound familiar? The Federalist Papers, National States. So at the exact same time, state societies were formed. The Ohio Society was chartered in April of 1889 with 17 other state societies at that same time. In June of 1889, the Ohio Society met, and it allowed both male and female descendants to join and participate. But since the Ohio Society was technically under the National, National immediately rejected that and basically said we are a male-only organization, which led in 1890 to the founding of the DAR, and the DAR was actually founded by President Benjamin Harrison's wife. So it's an interesting thing that we started off in Ohio as a co-ed organization. National said men only, and within a few years the Women's DAR was founded. and we kicked them out, and everybody knows them and nobody knows us. So our mistake goes back to the beginning. In 1892, May 5th, the Western Reserve Society was formed. We are America's largest. We have 457 members, and oldest. We are the oldest chapter, which blows my mind. Cleveland is older than Boston. Cleveland is older than Philly. I can't believe this. So I'm always bragging about this. We are over 125 years old. We were founded with 23 members. 5 of our original members, their fathers fought in the Revolutionary War. Notable members that we've had: Archibald Willard, I'll show you his painting in a second, you'll recognize the painting. Frederick Crawford, who founded TRW, Marcus Hanna, the senator, Harold Burton, the mayor, senator, and Supreme Court. So we've had some significant people over the years. This is the famous Archibald Willard painting, 1776. He was one of our members, and the SAR way back in the day, 1911, was responsible to get the painting that's in downtown Cleveland in the City Hall, if you would ever see that. I like the way I phrase this on our website, so forgive me for reading it, but it's much more eloquent. What in the world? Who are we? We are an explicitly nonpartisan group that honors the service of those who served in the Revolutionary War, promotes the study of U.S. history, the U.S. Constitution, and the best of American ideals and traditions. We believe in the principles articulated in the Constitution, the freedoms cited in the Bill of Rights, the value of American citizenship, and the unifying force of e pluribus unum. And boy, in today's world, it is hard to get that first line, to be explicitly nonpartisan. But what do we actually do? So really quickly, we are basically a educational arm that is promoting U.S. history, study of the original founding documents. So I was thrilled, just a few years ago, this is a student from Gilmore Academy. She won our local oration contest, who then won the state of Ohio contest, traveled to national, and she was the top American winner in the oration contest, where you talk for 5 minutes about the history of the United States. So Cleveland, Gilmore Academy, Western Reserve, won national. We also have a poster contest for the elementary school, a brochure contest for the middle school, a high school essay contest, History Day awards, 8th grade Good Citizen Concept, Good Citizen Award. If anybody here has children or grandchildren in any school, since we have programs from elementary through high school, please tell your principal, your assistant principal, to go to our website and learn, because these are wonderful history-based, nonpartisan contests where the kids can win cash awards. So it's very hard, and I'm sure you've had this in Rotary, it's very hard to get into the schools nowadays because they're always wondering what's your organization, what's your agenda. So if anyone does have any connection to the schools, feel free to push the school to our website.
We have 2 school board members, the superintendent and the treasurer.
So there we go. Excellent. Because this is the one thing. We are nonpartisan. We just want to promote history. So these are great ways for kids, by doing a poster, to get into history, to motivate them. What else do we do? Well, Junior ROTC, Eagle Scout, flag certificates. This is amazing. I think this is just kind of neat. Our members, if you're driving through town, for instance, and you see a house, it has to be a house, it can't be a car dealership, sorry. But if you see a private residence and someone's flag is actually hanging correctly, which means, for instance, if it's nighttime, you either have a light on it or you take it down. You scribble down the address of that house, you bring it to the board, we'll actually invite that person to come to one of our luncheons, we'll present them a flag award. Just a chance for everybody to come together and do these little signs to say thank you for doing it that way. And of course, police, fire, and service awards. This is something kind of neat. We've been involved with the Gates Mills 4th grade essay contest. So there you can see the little 4th grader who had to write an essay, and every year we support that particular organization. Our color guard is extremely active. Everybody in the SAR is volunteer, like Rotary. So here our color guard is marching in a parade. I would say there's at least 30 to 40 volunteer activities where our color guard will participate. And you name the civic event. If it's a veterans outreach, if it's Flag Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, any civic or historical event in Cleveland, our color guard will go out and volunteer. We also attend the naturalization ceremonies for immigrants that are becoming naturalized Americans. So this is a Garfield monument where they're naturalized every year. And so our color guard always shows up to present colors for naturalization. And something else we do is there are patriot ancestors buried in Ohio. So one of our jobs is to find those graves and document where is buried someone who fought in the Revolutionary War, and to honor that. So There's actually a Patriot ancestor buried in Shaker Heights on city property, which right now we're trying to work with the city to see if we can be in charge of maintaining it and keeping it up every year. This is our color guard commander. I understand he's actually related to one of your members over there.
My Uncle John Frank.
Excellent. And he is, I put this picture in because we're a completely volunteer organization, and I just look at these two pictures. His seriousness of his role as color guard commander on the right, and his still, I'm a young at heart kid on the left. So I always have to throw that picture in. So it's great to have a relative in the group. Who we are today and why we're the antidote to hyperpartisanism. That's my personal, as an officer, my goal is to keep us nonpartisan. We have a member who has an alpaca farm in Geauga County and another member who works at the largest law firm in the city of Cleveland. Most of our members are white, given kind of the nature, the history of our organization, but we actually do have black members who can trace their lineage back to someone who supported the Revolutionary War. So when people say SAR, they tend to think one simple idea, and it is just not true. Alpaca farmer to downtown city lawyer. I mean, you're talking someone who's a publisher in Boston versus a southern plantation owner back in the Revolutionary War. We continue the legacy of our ancestors to be everything under the sun. My favorite story of that is most of our meetings are held at the Union Club or country clubs, and you kind of see the same members all the time. Well, one year I said, let's do a shooting contest. Let's just go on a Saturday out to A&A shooting in Garrettsville, and anyone can come. It'll just be kind of like a picnic family event. And I swear I've never seen these people before. I mean, they're all members. Motorcycles showed up, people with bandanas on their head, and I was thrilled. I'm like, diversity, awesome. I had no idea. So the country club to the motorcycles, and what do we all have in common? We love America, and we're all descendants of someone who fought to build this country. I thought I would read this to you, because this is kind of interesting. You might hear this a lot today. It is astonishing to find how many of those who are attempting to teach American history are not in sympathy with their subject. They depreciate patriotism and misrepresent the acts and motives of our heroes and great leaders of the past. I have a feeling to some people in the room, based on your politics, you may hear that a lot. But check this out. That was 1922. This is what I try to remind my members. Everybody tends to live in the present, and everybody's like, oh, America's going to heck, and but wait a minute. That quote, which you could have heard yesterday on certain channels, was said over 100 years ago. 1922, the greatest generation ever, right? The Senator McCain generation. They were just being born when that statement was being made. So it is so important for us to remember that we may feel like this is the moment when we're being ripped apart. It's not. It's been in our country from the beginning. As anyone who studies history knows, to have Hamilton back Jefferson after being against him for so long, crossing the aisle, so to speak. We have a history of being a partisan country that can also cross lines. And we have to, when we feel like we are being separated, we have to pull out the history books, look to the quotes, remind ourselves we were separated, but we crossed the lines, we come together. It's never too late. This is an interesting quote that I like to use to remind us about hyperpartisanism. However, now this is about political parties or any associations like that. However, political parties may now and then answer popular ends, they are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to assert for themselves the reign of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. I think a few of you historians probably know who said that. Who is that? Go ahead and shout it out. That's Washington's farewell address. Washington's farewell address. So think about it. The most founding father, that probably everybody, no matter where you stand on the spectrum, says Washington should be at the top of the list. Why? For those that aren't really into historians, he's at the top of the list. Forget everything he did as a general. The man was president twice. Everybody loved him. He could have basically become the next king or emperor of America. And he said, no. He is our greatest leader because he had the ability to completely take America in a certain direction, and he went, I'm not going there. This is about democracy. 2 terms, I'm stepping down, let the people rule. So there's a reason why he's the #1 founding father. And I think it's important to always remind people in this hyper-partisan world, where sometimes we walk out of a room if we don't like what we're hearing, our founding father reminded us of the threat of hyperpartisanism, or in this case, political parties, which is what he's talking about is hyperpartisanism. One other quick story is our membership. We're the largest in the entire country, but it doubled. Our membership doubled between 1980 and today because of the generation of leaders in the 80s and 90s. Just in case you may know them, because they were business people, Hank Heckman, Bill Donnelly, Jack Horner, Chuck Bingham, they're business people in Cleveland. Their attitude when they came to SAR is, what we share in common is we're Americans. And my father was a lifelong Republican, but he considered it to be such a blessing and moment of honor that for, I think it was Rotary, and if not Rotary, it was another group like it, he drove to the airport to pick up Senator Biden, who was speaking for this civic group. And I mean, this was, and a few of you actually, of the same generation. The generation that really built the SAR was a generation that didn't see party lines. They didn't turn one channel because the channel told them the news they wanted to hear. They believed in America, and they worked always for what we have in common. So, now shifting to a little bit of some history stories for you. My kind of most significant ancestor, I have 5. What you have to do in the SAR is you actually have to show every birth certificate, death certificate, marriage license from the person who fought for the U.S. all the way to today. Every step. You have to show every piece of evidence. You have to prove somehow that your patriot ancestor did fight. It doesn't always have to be arms. If he was, for instance, a businessman who gave money to the patriot cause, that could make you eligible. You don't have to be a soldier. You just had to do something to support the patriot side. But you have to prove every single step. It's doable, but boy, they keep that bar high. For instance, these are all my mother's ancestors. And even though she has proven every birth certificate, every death certificate, everything all the way back, I can't take her membership to the SAR and say, I'm all for. I have to actually reconstruct every one of those pieces of evidence. And unfortunately, when Mom was doing her work, she didn't think of keeping all of these things for me. So I came in under my dad's line, and these are all proven through my mom's DAR membership. I can't count them at SAR until I reprove every one of those steps. So we need to work on that at the SAR first. But Robert McTeer, for people like stories, Robert McTeer was probably my most prominent ancestor, though they all were important. He was a captain in the PA militia, and what you get among SAR families is often the family stories. My great-great-great-grandfather, gave George Washington a bottle of wine. Things get a little embellished over lifetimes. So what I was always told is that Robert McTeer, Captain McTeer, fought at the Battle of Trenton and Princeton. But one thing about the SAR is you have to prove it. And although we can prove that who he was and all the lineage, how do you prove he fought in a certain battle? Because they didn't take attendance before you went to war, right? Well, it turns out my grandfather on my mom's side, he actually uncovered a will. Now, the family kind of hates him for doing this, but he uncovered a will. And what happened is Robert McTeer was captain of a certain group that was en route to Princeton, the Battle of Princeton and the Battle of Trenton, which were made, that's Washington crossing the Delaware. You picture that famous painting? That's the battle we'll talk about, a major battle. And so everyone in the family thought he participated. The problem is, he stopped off at a friend's farm to write a will. And he was actually one of the witnesses in the creation of this man's will. And when you look at the date on the will, it's impossible that he could not possibly have been in Pennsylvania on that date and made it to Trenton to fight in the battle. But, so right there we know, okay, that was a family exaggeration that he fought in Trenton. But also in the will, because they took a deposition, the man writing the will said, and Captain McTeer and this other man, who were the 2 witnesses, both left today and were heading to camp. So we also know in history that after they signed this guy's will as witnesses, they then did join their regiment. So it's pretty good evidence that Captain McTeer did fight at the Battle of Princeton, which came later, but did not make it to the Battle of Trenton. So this is kind of fun stuff that's involved with family history. It's really hard sometimes to find the definitive proof, but sometimes the journey is kind of fun. And I just wanted to show you, there is no one single uniform. Uniforms are basically based on what year, where you were. So a lot of the Southern troops were actually in this particular uniform in the early stages of the war. My ancestor, Robert McTeer, this is exactly what he wore, we know from the records. This is a later, more Continental Army uniform. So it's just kind of funny because people always think there's one founding father and one army, and no. It was a lot more disorganized than that, right? Now I thought I would read. I do have to read, unfortunately. I don't have them memorized. But I have asked some of our members to tell us whatever they know about their ancestors, and some of these are really, really interesting. James Crow, this is the ancestor. James Crow, born around 1750, fought in the Battle of Kings Mountain in 1780. James had been recruited for that battle, which was a decisive battle between the Patriot and Loyalist militias in the Southern Campaign. The actual battle took place on October 7th, 1780, 9 miles south of Kings Mountain, North Carolina, in a rural part of York County, South Carolina. British Major Ferguson had arrived in North Carolina in early September with the purpose of recruiting Loyalist militia and protecting the flank of Lord Cornwallis's main force. Ferguson ordered local militia to lay down their arms, but they refused and they rallied and attacked. The Patriot militiamen achieved the surprise, attacked, and surrounded the Loyalists. After an hour, Ferguson was fatally shot while trying to break the rebel line. His men surrendered. Although victorious, the Patriots had to retreat quickly for fear of Cornwallis's advance. The battle was a pivotal moment for South Campaign, which greatly raised the Patriots' morale. Or this more modest one. The ancestor is William Martin, second lieutenant in Captain James Hilton's company. He reportedly was commissioned in May of 1776. William took part in the capture of the vessel Sally, whose owners were deemed unfriendly to the Patriot cause. That's a little different. Johann Decker, captain, Pennsylvania, 1776. Under command of Captain Decker with Magaw's battalion, they marched to New York and encamped where Fort Washington was erected. He remained there to build the fort. He marched to Brooklyn, where annoyed by continual rains and without any tents, they laid upon their arms and kept up incessant firing against the British. They returned to Fort Washington, where on November 16th, the fort was attacked by General Howe's army, and due to treachery by Adjutant de Mol, the fort was captured. Some officers were paroled, but the majority of the men were retained until 1777, by which time their enlistment had expired. Captain Decker gained his parole and then broke it. He resigned in 1777, only to enlist again as Major Peter Deckard of Reading. Maybe one or two more. I think it's kind of, these are real people. Eldad Hitchcock, an early settler of the town of Westminster, Vermont, and a veteran of the American Revolution. As one of Westminster's first town officers, he is listed in the records of the town's first town meeting. According to the history of the town, he moved to Westminster from Broomfield, Massachusetts between 1775 and 1780. Eldad's revolutionary service was the basis for Kate Hitchcock's membership in the DAR. So you can see how DARS and I are both quite active here. While Eldad may not have actually heard the shot heard round the world in Lexington, he came fairly close. He marched to the alarm of April 18th with a regiment of Broomfield men to the defense of Lexington and Concord. Broomfield is close to Springfield, about 70 miles from Lexington. Given the distance, they couldn't have gotten there in time for the battle. Again, how many of these members say the same thing? I thought my guy was there. No. Given the distance, they couldn't have gotten there in time for the battle. In fact, it seems likely that they couldn't have even gotten the warning that the British were marching before the shots were actually fired. But the fact that they marched on the 19th indicates the speed at which the alarm spread and the seriousness with which the colonel viewed the situation at the time. Eldad served as a private, mustered in the army, and he subsequently served for 8 months in Danielson's regiment. And let's do one more. Let's go with this guy. Samuel Smith, March 1776. A township committee was appointed to buy all the arms that were fit for service. Samuel Smith of Buckingham was appointed to that post for the upper district. In May, at the age of 27, he assisted John Lacey in recruiting a company of 64 men. He was named first lieutenant. They joined General Anthony Wayne's regiment and marched to Valley Forge. On July 15, 1776, a meeting was held with Samuel Smith, and he was elected delegate from Bucks County to a convention held in Philadelphia that was to form a state constitution. So we've tried to put together stories as best we can, but whether my ancestor, who had my namesake ancestor, was not necessarily that prominent, but no matter what your ancestor did, the pride you feel in being part of this is simply amazing. Before I take questions, I thought I would leave you with one more quote. The essence of government is power, and power, lodged as it must be in human hands, will ever be liable to abuse. So that is James Madison. So one of the neat things you find when you really get into American history, too, is that if people have studied Madison, he's one of my favorite. Madison and Hamilton wrote 2/3 of the Federalist Papers. They basically were 2/3 of the movement to create a strong central government. Within 8 to 10 years, everything changed in Madison's mind, and he actually took the opposite side. He and Hamilton were actually in disagreement, and Madison was promoting more states' rights over a super powerful centralized government. So there's a lot of research in what really affected James Madison. I mean, he was such a revolutionary for a powerful central government, and then a different angle a few years later. So history is fascinating, and I definitely encourage you to study. I'll take any questions you have.
Yeah, and actually, I think the video, I turned off the speaker, but I thought the video was
Okay, you were mentioning, thank you for your fascinating talk. You were mentioning General Washington, who, of course, upon his resignation from the Army, founded the Society of Cincinnati, which is a name for the Roman general who traded his sword for a plowshare. And the Society of Cincinnati flourishes to this day. I'm a member of the Society of Cincinnati of Maryland. And I'm just curious, what kind of relationship has the SAR had with the Society of the Cincinnati?
I can't speak with knowledge over our entire history, but I can tell you that in all the meetings and all I've attended, there's not much of a connection that I know of. But I think that is more a matter of a lot of people who are in our organization might also be in the Mayflower Society. There's not as much working across lines as there should be. I'll put it that way. So I don't know that we've actually had much connection at all, but it's probably because the minute you get in the room, everybody's focused on the SAR, and people are forgetting to look across the hallway and see what other groups are doing the same thing.
Yeah. They have a fascinating museum in Washington, Anderson House on Massachusetts Avenue, which is a great collection of Revolutionary War history and artifacts and mementos. And I would recommend it to anybody who's interested in that subject.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Never heard.
Yeah. Oh, you can pass it back down.
I'll take it.
Yeah, he was a linebacker.
I'm going to limit my comments, but I can say it this way. I believe that's true, and what we are finding, what I'm finding in a lot of the ancestors' lines is you'll have someone who simply served for 2 months, 6 months. We kind of get the sense that people enlisted at the beginning of the war and fought nonstop for 6, 8, 10 years, this long. And that really isn't what it is. A lot of my ancestors came in for 6 months, they did their service, and then went back to the farm. So I do think what you said is right. I don't have a lot of. I definitely am not claiming to be a
Yeah. A lot of people families go back to the time.
Yes.
The revolutionary.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. But also I think it's important because it just blew my mind. So you are risking your life. You are joining. I mean, keep in mind this is militia. This is also somewhat rudimentary and pulling it together by shoestrings. And keep in mind, and this is not me in any way being critical of the government, but the Continental Congress did not give the power of taxation. So how many times do we have Washington saying, my men don't have boots, my men don't have ammunition, my men are starving, I need something, and all of the Continental Congressmen are like, I don't have you. We kind of get this idea that everybody was on the board and everybody's throwing in the kitchen sink to help. And no, I mean, a lot of my ancestors, they served 6 months, they did their thing, and then they were done. So it's interesting when you get into the history of that.
A lot is spoken about the soldiers that participated in the revolution. Is there any component of your organization that represents the naval side of it or the Navy side of it?
I don't know of any distinction within the SAR. If you in any way supported the Patriot cause, you are a member. So I don't think we ever made any distinction between are you a businessman who only supported financially, a soldier who fought, a navalist.
Okay.
I am positive we have tons of members who can go back to the Navy. We've never. That's a great idea.
Their records would probably be better to document because of the fact that they were aboard a ship and the ship was in a battle. it's pretty well probably easy to document.
You did have a tent.
No, I think it's a great idea.
What's that, Tom?
There's been much of a movement.
You did have a tent.
The nature of the service. But that is
Those uniforms, I see them as an honor guard in really hot days. Are those uniforms hot?
yeah.
They look like they're wool.
Well, it depends. Believe it or not, I just got my uniform just made a few months ago.
Yeah?
And so the guy, there's a man in Florida, a tailor, and all he does, this is his full-time job, is he makes revolutionary soldier uniforms. So he has found a way to go with some modern materials. So mine is not that bad. But yes, our John Franklin, our color guard commander, if he's wearing his wool, and you have the outside jacket and the inside jacket, it is very hot.
I bet.
And just little things too. They don't have pockets. So when I was having my uniform made, he said you need to have a candy bag, and I said, well, what do I need that for? He said, well, it's America, and you have a cell phone, don't you? Where are you going to put it? And I was like, oh, okay. There are no. Yeah, they did not make pockets in the uniform back then. You're right. So,
They didn't have cell phones in those days?
Not until the Civil War. Yeah.
So if there was no taxation through the Continental Congress, how was the states funded it? Okay.
The federal government, the Continental Congress, was not empowered to tax. It was left to tax to then supply what they felt was appropriate.
So carry us just a little bit further, because I made a connection here. I think the Western Reserve was the Western Reserve of Connecticut,
right?
Which was then auctioned off by the state of Connecticut. Am I right about that?
I'm definitely not a historian.
Isn't that what?
It's a land grant.
Yeah, it was compensation for revolutionary war. Soldiers. The Western Reserve
Don't worry.
was compensation that was paid to individual Revolutionary War soldiers because they couldn't afford to pay them money, so they gave them land. And that's where the Western Reserve came from.
But David Hudson bought Hudson at auction or through some sort of an auction process.
And if you once you had the process for surveying this area and dividing it up into property, people could acquire the land, and if they were able to acquire more, then you had the beginning of the landed class in the Western Reserve. But initially it was compensation for services rendered.
Yeah, every one of my mother's side, they all started around Philadelphia and then moved towards Harrisburg and ended up in Cadiz, Ohio, and Marietta. And they were all basically, as the war ended, they moved west. They went into that new territory.
But the Western Reserve ended, I can't remember the exact longitude, but it was somewhere before you get to Worcester, and went across toward Sandusky.
224.
Yeah, and 224 and then up. So the southern part of the state and the northwest was not involved.
Yeah.
Related to that question, throughout history, men joined the fight because they were entitled to the spoils, be it the Turkish army or whatever. In the Revolutionary War, were the soldiers entitled to any spoils? From the colonials?
I would. There's actually a professor, Dr. Gallo at John Carroll, who speaks about this all the time. If I can summarize his work, and I do not mean this in a critical way, but more just a statement of kind of reviewing history, one of his positions is that if you look at the wealthiest class coming out of the Revolutionary period, they were generally the generals and colonels in the army, to almost every extent. And that does not necessarily mean they started as super wealthy and just maintained their wealth, but from their position and influence, also were able to have great wealth of land. So Dr. Gallo has done years of work in this. I know what amazed me, and it just, because it's not what you always hear, and again, I'm not being critical, it's just things we don't always hear. Several of my ancestors, the ones that only served, say, 6 months, were because the local area basically said, you have to serve. you have to join. You have to be in the militia. But what you could also do is sell that. So if you, Bill, didn't want to fight, but David is willing to fight, you could actually, David would take your space and you could pay David to take your space, which kind of blows my mind. But again, these were farmers who basically maybe it was happening at harvest time. Not that they weren't patriotic, but it was harvest time. They needed to be home. The local government said, you need to get in the militia and go. Well, I'm going to sell it to this guy. He's going to go represent me while I stay home and work the farm. So, though again, I'm not, and my training is actually Latin American history, but in being part of the SAR, I've been trying to read more and study my own ancestors.
Yeah, go ahead. So it's actually picking up.
Didn't quite make it this week.
The question, if someone is interested in researching this, let's say maybe you qualify for this, do you folks help them with a way to go about doing that to make it easier?
Absolutely. We have volunteer genealogists. And what I always say when someone says, can you help me, is the guy who has a full-time job and a wife and 3 kids would be glad to help. But he won't be doing the work for you. But for instance, here's one little trick, although I'm putting it on TV and this probably they'll kill me for this, but one little trick is if you know who your ancestor is, if you know that's kind of the starting point. What you can do is actually go to the DAR and find another person, maybe very distantly related to you, but that person already did all of the research, say, on the first 4 generations. So you can actually pull up that record, if you're applying to the DAR, for instance. You could pull up that person's record that you've never met, and right there is proof 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you only have to build your line from where that group separated, and it's much easier to fill in. So it's a little secret, is find your patriot, and then find somebody else who did all the work and build up. But we do. We have volunteer genealogists who will help guide you. You will never have to do it alone. It's just they're all like you, people with full-time jobs, so they can't do the work for you. They'll definitely help. Absolutely help. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So in that picture, it looks like you guys participate in some parades.
Oh yeah, the color guard. Yeah.
Do you do any parades locally?
I'm trying to think. I think the closest. We don't do as many parades, like the 4th of July parade, we are always in Gates Mills because of that relationship with the school district for the essay contest. I would say it's less about parades, and there's 30 to 40 events every year that we participate in. So you name it, every single Veterans Day, and any time there is Flag Day, and any civic event. Like for instance, even if just the Coast Guard of Cleveland is going to have a special event, they may call us and say, we need a color guard. And that's why all the men on the color guard, this is what they do. They're almost all retired, and they say, we'll be there. So we will come to any group, any civic organization. It's really not a lot of parades, but it tends to be these groups that need a color guard for them.